Welcome to my channel, Duckpotatoe's World. I am your hostess, Katie, also known as MrsDuckPotatoe. I am hoping that this will be the first annual State of the Knitter address where we review all of the things that I accomplished in the last year and the things that I hope to get done for next year. And in this episode, we're also going to be giving away some Hot Springs Fiber Company yarn, so I know that you are excited about that. Now, I just want to go over really briefly some past years because this is my first State of the Knitter address. I want you guys to see where I'm coming from. So I actually learned to knit. Well, honestly, I learned to knit back in 2007 when my first child was born. Now, my first son was premature. He was a 33-week infant. Babies are usually born between 37 and 40 weeks, so he was about 6 weeks early. And he was in the NICU for several weeks after he was born. And my mom actually flew up to where we lived at the time. And of course, I was a total mess. And she had just learned to knit. And I thought, hey, that looks like fun. And she was like, yeah, knitting is fun. So she started teaching me to knit. And I had a yellow washcloth that I worked on for about 3 months, one washcloth, while she was there with us until she went back home. And when she left, I was still working on the same washcloth that I began with. And I thought, you know, I started doing this because I thought it would be fun and it would keep my mind off some of the things going on with the baby. And the reality was that the baby was home and he was fine and the knitting was not fun. I decided that woman was crazy. So fast forward 10 years when my oldest son was now 10 and I had 3 younger sons. And we were having a big family Christmas party, and I decided I was going to sew aprons for all the women in my family. So I sewed all of these aprons, and I thought, what am I going to do for the guys? I mean, I could make them aprons, but the particular apron I was sewing was not particularly a masculine pattern. I didn't think they would really want one. So I was not sure what to do. And I was talking to my mom when we were visiting her, and she was like, just knit them a scarf. And I was like, you know, I don't know how to knit. And she was like, I taught you how to knit. I was like, yeah, I don't remember any of that. So she spent literally one day teaching me to knit and I actually picked it up like pretty quickly. You know, my kids were older and I didn't have a baby in the NICU and I wasn't quite as stressed, and it was not nearly so bad the second time around. And by the time we were leaving, I knew how to cast on and knit. And as we're walking around the door, she's giving me a pattern for a scarf. And I'm like, what's this here? Purl. She's like, oh, here. And she showed me how to purl, like, as we were leaving. It was about a 4-hour drive from my mom's house home. And my husband drove, and I knit on these ribbed scarves the whole way home. And I would get half an inch in, and make a mistake, and I wouldn't be able to fix it. So I'd frog the whole thing out and start over again. But by the time we got home, that 4 hours of fussing with it, I kind of had the basic idea down. And for the next several months, I was always knitting these ribbed scarves. And whenever I would get myself in trouble, I would go to this local yarn shop. Well, it's not super local. It's about 45 minutes to an hour away from where I live. But I would go there, and the women at that yarn shop would get me out of my pickle and get me going again. And I managed to knit about 8 or 9 scarves for the men in our family for that Christmas. Well, this is what I learned from that, okay? Knitting, so fun. Love to knit. I finished knitting 9 scarves and I was like, I gotta knit something else. This was fun. So knitting is fun. What's not fun at all, is learning to knit. So I tell everyone I teach to knit, look, knitting is fun. You see me knitting all the time. I love it. Here's the thing. I know how to knit. Learning to knit, yeah, not fun. Learning to knit's not fun. But if you can persevere and get through it, then knitting is fun. Now, I also don't recommend knitting 9 identical scarves as your first project. It got boring after a while, but on the upside, by the time I had made 9 ribbed scarves, I could knit, purl, cast on, cast off, and fix most of my basic mistakes. So that was nice. But anyway, that was kind of how I learned to knit, and that was back in 2016. So I completed 8 scarves in 2016, I think. I think I said 8 or 9. I can't really remember now exactly how many. In 2017, I had found out about Ravelry. I had discovered the world of fiber festivals, and like I was a total goner, dived headfirst into the world of knitting, dragged my mom down a rabbit hole she didn't even know existed because she had been kind of a lone knitter prior to that, but totally got into it. In 2017, I completed 31 projects, and I don't know if Ravelry had the challenge program going on back in 2017. If they did, I didn't know about it, so I didn't use it. But that's just kind of what I completed. In 2018, they definitely had the challenge program up. So I had challenged myself to complete 50, and I made 56 projects. In 2019, I thought 50 was a good goal. I finished 51. It makes sense that it was a little less because I was starting to get more and more larger and more complicated problems. In 2020, I lowered my goal down to 40 because I knew I would be starting homeschooling for the first time, and I had no idea like what my knitting life was going to look like. Things had changed drastically for me. I did manage to get 37 out of 40 projects, so that wasn't bad at all. In 2021, I completed 32 with a goal of 30, so that was great. 2022 has been really fun because in 2022, I made a goal of 35 projects. But that was also the year that we bought my sock machine. Now, I ordered it in February and it didn't come until June. But in the 6 months I had it, July, August, September, October, November, yeah, in the 6 months that I had that sock machine, I knit quite a few socks. So in 2022, I completed 71 projects, and that's what we're going to talk about now. So of those 71 projects, 42 of them were done on my sock machine, Sock-a-Latte. I made 32 pairs of socks, y'all. 32. Compared to previous years where I might have made 4 or 5 pair, maybe 6 pair, I think 32 is awesome. I made 8 sock tubes that were given away, or I have them and haven't put heels and toes and cuffs in them yet, or something like that. And then I knit 1 scarf on my sock machine. Then I knit 29 hand knits. So 6 cowls, 4 hats, 4 pairs of socks that I knit by hand, some before I got my machine and 1 after, 3 shawls, 1 sweater, not this sweater, this one's store-bought. I love this sweater though. 1 cardigan, 4 blankets, and I mean adult size, I think. I mean, they were, 2 of them were for babies, but they weren't baby-sized baby blankets. They were at least throw size. They were pretty big. And 5 dishcloths. And this is a new thing I have 1 design published from 2022. So that was a really pretty good year. I have knit a total of, let's see, that's 40, 50, 60, 71 projects in 2022. Now, on to 2023, I have a goal of knitting 75 projects. So that is a little bit of an increase over this year, but I think it's totally doable, but considering, you know, almost half of those projects, if not more than half, are going to be socks on my sock machine and things like that. So I have put that down as my Ravelry challenge. And my second goal, y'all, this has been my goal for a couple of years now, is to knit all the projects that are in my Ravelry queue. So for the most part, there might be a couple of exceptions, but for the most part, if I put a project in my Ravelry queue, I have the yarn, I have the needles, I have them in a bag with the pattern printed and bought. I just need to cast it on and actually knit it. And so what happens in my queue is I find something, I buy the yarn, oh, I'm going to knit it, but I'm already knitting something else, and I figure, well, I'll start that when I finish this. And before I finish that, I've gone and knit, you know, something else, and I don't know how some of these things get pushed back. I had, I think, like 14 projects at one point in my queue, and I was like, oh, that's a lot. I need to get those knit. And I managed to knit them all out in a year and then start over new, and now it's just gotten worse. So now I have 29 projects in my queue. I have everything I need to knit them. I just need to find the time to knit them. So my goal for 2023 is to knit those projects. I think my oldest one is from February of 2020. Which I think is when I think 2019 was when I actually knit my whole queue, and I started 2020 afresh with nothing in my queue, and yeah, that was the last time I did that, I think. So I want to knit my queue. I have a third goal. So when I first got my sock machine, I wound quite a bit of yarn onto cones just to learn to wind cones. And I would like to get all of that yarn knit and off the cone. Most of it is not my favorite yarn. It was stuff I knew, if I lost it to knots or mistakes in the socks, it wasn't going to be the end of the world. But I can definitely knit a pair of socks on my machine now. So I'd like to get all of that yarn off my cones, free up my cones to put some more fun, pretty, exciting yarn on them. And I have a little bag of odds and ends that I wanted to make scrappy socks out of. I'd like to get those two things all knit up into socks and off my shelf. And then my fourth goal is also a CSM goal. I need to make friends with my ribber. So my ribber and I are not on speaking terms right now. She doesn't like me, and she's not my favorite either, apparently. Like, we don't mesh well. So clearly we need to spend some quality time together where we're just chilling and not trying to accomplish any goals. That's hard for me. I have a hard time doing things that don't have that the goal is just to learn. Like, I like to learn new things, but I also like to have something finished at the end of that. But yeah, that's just not going to happen with my ribber. I need to work on something and just be happy if I learn to use it, and then worry about actually having some product at another time. But I'm hoping to, this summer, really get down with my ribber and make friends with her. And then I always have a reading goal. I know a lot of knitters that do YouTube channels talk about what they're reading. Most of what I'm reading is stuff with my kids for school. So it could be anything from a Magic School Bus book to a science textbook. And I read a fair bit of random stuff on my own. So I do have a goal of reading 100 books. I had that same goal last year and I read 92, so I didn't quite hit 100. So I'm hoping to hit 100 this year. I count every single book I read. Like I said, Magic School Bus, that is a book. It counts as one book. And I figure it balances out because then I read things like, I read the history of the state of Texas, which was like 990 some odd boring pages of textbook Texas history. It actually wasn't boring. It's actually pretty interesting. But you get the idea. Like, I figured if some of the books are 900 pages and some of the books are 25 pages, it all goes out in the wash. So if I read it, it's a book, I count it. Now, that is 2022 in a nutshell. Plans for 2023 in terms of my knitting. In terms of my YouTube channel, I don't really have any big plans for you guys. I plan to keep putting out most of the same stuff I've been doing. You should find Created to Create episodes coming out hopefully about every month, somewhere around the beginning to the end of the month, in that general time frame. I plan to continue with posting my kids' school stuff. I might have a new book that I read coming up. We'll see about that. I don't know how much more Created for Praise we're going to do. We love to, my mother and grandmother and I love to sing together, but it's just getting the time to put that together. That hasn't really happened since the last time we aired it. But if we manage it, we may put up some songs that we're singing together. I plan to continue with the bonusodes for little one-off knittings. And I actually do plan, I've had several people actually request for more videos of me working on my sock machine. So I will try to remember next time I pull her out to just put up the tripod and film some of that working with her. She doesn't get pulled out a lot when we have school because she has to be attached to my desk. And when we're in school, my desk has got papers and pencils and everything else all over it. Right now we are doing a radish seed growing project, and I have, 4 different science experiments going on with radish seeds. So there's just kind of a limit to how much space I have available. But the next time we take a nice long break, I will definitely be pulling her out and getting some socks knit. And hopefully we have about 8 weeks off this summer where I can really crank out some socks. Now, I am going to be drawing a winner for the Hot Springs Fiber Company yarn. All right, so we have been really blessed to get to know Tracie. She is the owner and dyer of Hot Springs Fiber Company in Hot Springs, Arkansas. I do not live in Arkansas, I live in Texas, but I met her while I was up there. It was her idea to do a collaboration and work together, and I have really enjoyed everything I've done with her, besides the fact that I love her yarn. I loved it the second that I got there. I love the feel of her shop. She is very friendly and very artsy and creative, and you can really feel that her shop is so beautiful. And she is so sweet and very generous and very, very talented. And she is very encouraging. So she is actually the one that encouraged me to try my hand at designing a few things for her store. So there's my first design that I told you that's going to be part of the blanket, is part of the Blanket of Knowledge. It's the December knit block. And I am currently working on the February knit block. And I've got a couple of other blocks in the works. So thank you, Tracie, for all that. In addition to that kind of support, she has also been very gracious to send us yarn to share with you. So this is this month's giveaway. It is absolutely beautiful, chunky magic merino yarn, as well as a set of stitch markers that are kind of winter themed. And this is what we are going to draw for a winner for right now.
Time to spin.
All right, so congratulations to Cynthia Navin. If you would please email me at the email that's posted below and send me your address, I will get this mailed out to you the first chance I get. Just in case you're wondering, this is the CC Girls Copycat hat. The pattern's on Ravelry. I'll put the link below. And this is a store-bought sweater that my friend gave me, but I really love it. My favorite thing about it, hopefully you can see it, is it buttons down the back. So every time I wear it, my husband and my son want to tell me my sweater's on backwards. But I just love it. It feels nice. In fact, I'm going to have to find a design. It's knit in two pieces. I don't know if it's top down or bottom up, but it's just all the way across. But anyway, I'm sure there's a pattern knit that way, and I'm going to have to find one and knit it. I really love it. So I feel really good about the year. I would love for you guys to comment below and tell me what you're working on, what you've accomplished. Does anybody else like to track stuff? I love data. Like if I can make a graph out of it, it makes my heart sing. I don't always make a graph, but I like to have the data where I could make a graph. So I really appreciate you guys taking the time to sit with me for this. I'm still new at the whole YouTube camera thing. It took us a few minutes to get it kind of set up, and I'm trying to figure out a way to make things just go a little more smoothly. So this was my first State of the Knitter address. I hope that you enjoyed it. Comment below and tell me your State of the Knitter address. I would love to see how you're doing and what you're doing and everything else. I'm going to say a quick prayer and thank the Lord for the beautiful blessings that He gives us, and I'll see you next time. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for the many blessings that you give us. Thank you for the opportunity to knit together both in person and over the internet. Thank you for giving us the ability and desire to create beautiful things. Thank you for your beautiful creation that is all around us and inspires us. And as always, Lord, thank you so much for your Son Jesus, who died on the cross for our sins. And I pray these things in your Son's name. Amen. Welcome to my channel, Duckpotatoe's World. This is the first